Auckland. A turtle which explorer Captain Cook gave to the King of Tonga in 1777 died yesterday. It was nearly 200 years old. The animal, called Tu Imalila, died at the Royal Palace ground.
They don't advertise for killers in a newspaper. That was my profession. Ex-cop.
Well, hello there. It's your buddy, Admiral Teague, with my pal, Captain Petty. How you doing, Captain?
I'm doing excellent. You know what would make me feel better, though?
If people liked and subbed our channel, yes.
Your channel.
It's my channel. I am the Admiral, but I have come to rely on my pal, Captain Petty here, for fight analysis breakdowns and for his great tactical take. You should check out our non-analysis, because really we couldn't figure it out, the Nothing Burger of the Indiana Jones 5 trailer.
We didn't make that correlation.
And the classic, well, we're making it now, and their classic, a movie that goes on to be the new It's a Wonderful Life.
It changes the world.
It's called Cocaine Bear by Elizabeth Banks, the filmmaker, the visionary.
Elizabeth Banks, thank you so much. So, this is a preamble for our future review.
We're going to be reviewing two movies that are said to be related to each other. And I'm going to ask you a question, Captain.
6 3/4 inches.
A slightly different question. You're in a desert, and you see a tortoise lying on its back, but you're not helping it.
Why am I not helping?
A tortoise, by the way, is sort of like a turtle.
I've never seen a tortoise, but I know what you mean.
You know why the tortoise is mentioned is because the novel Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which springs the Blade Runner world, but is not the same. There's significant differences. Have you read the novel?
I have.
It is a great novel.
It is. It has there's a lot more domestic things, and I focus a lot more on
Deckard is married.
Divorced.
Well, he's on the cusp of getting divorced.
Yes, sorry.
His wife, who knows though, his wife could go turn her mood manipulator to a different setting. They have brain mood vibrators in the novel where you turn on your Penfield ray and it gives you whatever feeling you want.
There's a lot of weird nuances in the novel.
It's a really weird book.
Reminds me of just like the intricacies of a thermostat.
But we get something we never get in either Blade Runner movie in the Blade Runner source novel, which is called Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep.
The answer is
he's
no.
human. He's human in the book, definitively, because he gives the test to himself. And he has someone else verify it.
Now
it's double verified that the Deckard of the book, the Philip K. Dick's film writing, and let's just say no one has ever made a truly correct and authentic to the book Philip K. Dick movie.
A Scanner Darkly.
All right, that's the closest anyone's come.
Rotoscoped.
But neither Total Recall movie is anything like the book.
May I say, Philip K. Dick actually got to see early test footage of Blade Runner.
He loved it, I heard.
And he said, "You got it."
Philip K. Dick, certainly my kind of guy, making a lot of very today science fiction, and we're talking today as in now, because he might be one of the top 5 or 6 authors selling in your time in 2022. And where we are at 2282, we do enjoy a Philip K. Dick once in a
Hollywood
while.
was making a killing off the gentleman from the 1980s to the mid-2000s.
The movies, they go on. There's Total Recall.
Minority Report.
Total Recall.
Scanner Darkly.
Blade Runner. Blade Runner is based on another book.
There's 2 more prominent ones.
There was a.
I always wanted to say Gattaca, but it's not.
It's not. It's very Philip K. Dick-like, though.
Yeah, actually very poignant. So, this is our preamble for our double review of Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049.
And we're going to take both movies in context. So when we do the first Blade Runner, the second one won't exist. It won't exist in our minds, okay?
So
the second one, though, is based on the first one, so the first one has to exist in our minds.
So we're going to do a review of Blade Runner first. So
what we're doing first is we're going to talk about how we feel about these Blade Runner movies.
Would you like to go first, Admiral?
I want you to go first, because Blade Runner means so much more to you.
Blade Runner is the greatest movie ever made in the history of the world. Let me explain to you why. It explains it is everything about human life. It is aesthetically pleasing, but narratively it leaves people wanting more. All it is about is a sad, alcoholic civil servant who fucks and kills robots and finds that maybe there's more to life from someone that doesn't have any life to live. Someone that is stronger than him, better looking than him, more in tune to his feelings than him. And the only
Better
reason
sourced
this man
than him.
this man has 4 years to live. The whole point in this movie is
But he's seen things that no one else
has ever seen.
C-beams glittering off of Orion.
The shoulder of Orion.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
You know what? I just want to read you a news article from 1966, Captain Petty. Are you ready?
No, I don't think you're really gonna have
I am going to
fans
read this
listen.
news article.
I know what this is.
This news article from 1966, which is in the past for the people who are broadcasting to, I believe, would it be
We're in the future.
65 years in that past or 55 years?
I'm not doing
56
the math, but you know,
I
I
mean,
know that you
we're
need
broadcasting to
Nuku
2022, where you're gonna have, if you like
people
reboots,
of
boy, are you
Tonga
lucky.
regard-
Man, guess what book this is
Regarded the
from?
animal
This
as
is
a
from
chief
the source
and
novel
special-
of Bladerunner, Auckland. A turtle which explorer Captain Cook gave to the King of Tonga in 1777 died yesterday. It was nearly 200 years old. The animal, called Tumanula, died at the Royal Palace ground in the Tongan capital of Nuku'alofa. The people of Tonga regarded the animal as a chief, and special keepers were appointed to look after it. It was blinded in a bushfire a few
It was
years
blinded
ago.
in a bushfire
Tonga
a few
radio
years ago.
said to Mulaula's carcass
Tonga
would be
radio
sent
said
the Auckland
to
Museum
Imalila's
in
carcass
New
would be
Zealand.
sent to the
Reuters,
Auckland Museum in New Zealand.
1966.
So,
Reuters, 1966.
previously you read me this, and I thought that didn't have any context.
I read it to you out of context earlier, and what was your
just-
reaction?
I'm like, what the fuck was that about? Now I understand it.
It's the forward to the book Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
And why do you think that is, Admiral?
Memories. We're talking about
200
memories.
200 years that turtle existed.
This creature had life in abundance the way that
would
the
never be able to
replicants could
understand.
never have. But at the same time,
It was revered as a cheat for its experience.
but this news article seems to have deeply influenced the novel because, or at least it influenced the movie even more because honestly, in the novel and the movie, you read people's eyes to tell whether or not they are a replicant. You do it by gauging the capillaries in their eyes and how they react. It's sort of based on a lie detector test, but like it's sort of like an iris lie
It's
detector
called the
test.
Voight-Kampff test,
It is the Voight-Kampff test,
which
and
becomes even more prominent in the second movie, and actually is more effective.
in the second movie they also have a way to make the if you comply, you can shine a black light in someone's iris and see their serial number if they're a replicant because they're being made by a different company, but
Their left eye.
in their
Made
left.
by the Wallace Company.
And that is a much different animal than this turtle that died in 1966, but was born around 1777 and given as a gift by Cardinal Cook to the king of.
Captain Cook. Cardinal
I'm
Cook
sorry,
is dead.
Captain. Well, both are dead.
By the way, Cardinal Cook has a place on Fifth Avenue in New York City in the 21st century
Is
that
it-
gets a lot of Class 3 alarms.
St. Patrick's
And they deserve
Cathedral?
all the fines that they get, especially when Engine 58 and Ladder 26 have to show up at 2 o'clock in the morning.
I don't know if you want to talk about those things, but okay. Let's just say this. This news article seems to have influenced and informed the movie because we have a lot of stuff going on with eyes, and the turtle, of course, although it had special keepers, somehow managed to get blinded in a bushfire.
Because it's the law of averages, Admiral. The turtle's been around for 200 years. Eventually it was going to happen.
The turtle
It was
lived long
blinded
enough.
before it died.
The point here is that the turtle was as well kept as it could be, and it still got burned in a bushfire. What's life like for an everyday person in New Guinea? The turtle may well have lived better than the people who lived in that city. And
200 years is pretty good, Admiral. I don't know about you.
But what did they do when the turtle died? What did they do with its body?
They praised it.
They brought it to the Royal Museum in Auckland because, Captain, memories. They're talking about memories.
They're talking about memories.
And the creature will stay alive to them if they venerate it and put it in their museum. And it belongs there.
What is your impression of the first Blade Runner movie?
Epic, fantastic, one of the best movies ever made, one of the most brilliant mixing of two strong genres before we'd ever seen it.
Fantasy, sci-fi, and
I would say it's strange that Harrison Ford is the one who takes us on this trip.
He doesn't
that
seem
we
to wanna
saw.
be there.
We all. You know what? Is the strange detachment of Deckard is playing it with a lack of
It
humanity on
makes it
purpose.
better.
I would say Harrison Ford was the perfect actor for this movie, and You know, they gave him a Lifetime Achievement Award. This should have been the movie that was in most of the highlight reel. Because aside from this, although Harrison Ford is in 6 of the top 10 highest grossing movies of all time at one point, only 4 of those movies are good. The 3 first Indiana Jones movies, Raiders of the Lost Ark, the best one, Temple of Doom, and the last one, in our opinions, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. There is an acceptable fourth movie.
There's not.
There are 7 or 8 more Indiana Jones movies after Indiana Jones 3.
We're not talking about Indiana Jones. We're talking about a real movie. Okay, a film.
Are we gonna talk about Indiana Jones 11?
How many versions of the first Blade Runner are there?
There are about 4 different cuts of Blade Runner.
You are incorrect,
There's
sir.
also European and American cuts, 1 crop for TV. There's a lot.
How many do you think there are?
Weve got a lot of ambiguity on that. There could be as many as 6, as few as 3.
No, as few as
2.
7.
Wow, that's pretty close at 6.
7 versions of this movie.
Just a little more than I even imagined. Okay.
There's the work print.
But this movie was not made to be 7
release.
different movies with tested endings on social media. This guy was honestly not sure what to do.
There were tested endings.
Tested with an audience in a theater, though.
Yes.
The only real test. Because we found out, you can throw a trailer up on Twitter, and all the fucking Twitter trolls, they'll love the shit out of it, but they're not going to get off their asses and go to the movies because they're not real, and they live in the fake world of Twitter.
Was this movie a financial success?
Which movie are we talking about?
Either one.
Blade
Runner. Let's go with Blade Runner.
Unfortunately,
No.
Blade Runner was not the
Giant
biggest
flop.
financial success.
Giant flop.
I don't know about giant flop, but certainly
No, it's a
not
giant flop.
acceptable. I know he ran out of money and had to. The unicorn is from another movie. You know what movie?
Willow.
Legend.
Oh, fuck me dead.
It's another Scott-free movie directed by. Is it Tony Scott or is it Ridley? There are 2 Scott brothers. They both do Scott-free films.
Also, do you know where the?
You needed that unicorn from another movie, though. You could see the unicorn also in Legend with Tom Cruise and the beautiful Mia Sara.
And the stock footage.
An ageless Mia Sara.
And the stock footage of the theatrical cut is from where?
I'm not sure. Tell me.
Stanley Kubrick's The Shining through the mountains.
I just want to tell.
It is reverse shot mountain footage from the beginning of The Shining.
Insane. I also want to say to our listeners back in 2022, we are with Mia Sara. We saw her this morning for a little bit of. We had some mimosas. And we had some breakfast and brunch, and
madness.
She still looks exactly the same. Good life choices, but
Thank the
beautiful
Lord below.
and ageless Mia Sara, who is in probably the best version of Birds of Prey from the original UPN, wasn't it? Or was it the WB?
It really?
In the 1990s, a lot of the records from that time are lost.
Wow.
There was a Mia Sara Birds of Prey.
It's so sad. It's so sad you can recall that, but not how many versions of Blade Runner there were.
You know
in
what?
2007.
I don't think Ridley Scott knows how many versions of Blade Runner there are.
There's at least 7.
Mia Sara is 5'4" and 55 years old.
Good for her.
Last year she was 5'4", 5'4". We missed the symmetry with Mia Sara. Still beautiful.
Oh my God.
Still absolutely beautiful. Ageless. Only Jennifer Connelly did as well. Is Mia Sara related to Sean Connery? She's best known for Legend and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. She looks a lot like Ione Skye. People confuse her with Ione Skye a lot.
To say that we're going off track is an understatement.
Well, you know what? Mia Sara, one of the most beautiful women of all time. So
the preamble for these 2 movie reviews is going to be 47 minutes, ladies and gentlemen.
Memories. We're talking about memories of when this stream made more sense. All right, listen. We're only 13 minutes into this. We could bring it back home to Blade Runner, certainly. We've alluded to the novel. We've told people make good life choices and you'll look as good as Mia Sara, and we can move on.
To what? Blade Runner 2049.
Blade Runner between movies is probably what I want to talk about most. After Blade Runner sort of skulks out of theaters like some unwanted popcorn that no one wanted to buy, despite being the most inventive movie of that year.
Best looking.
The best looking movie of that
year. Mostly well acted.
Probably the 5th best Harrison Ford movie.
No, it's the best movie ever made, so therefore it's the best Harrison Ford movie.
It's tied with a lot of other There's a lot of other Harrison Ford movies that approach it. Let's just say that this actor has been in a lot of cherished movies, and this movie still possibly is the best.
Madmiral, I'm gonna say this.
Madmiral, that's pretty good too.
Madmiral. No, I thought I said Admiral. Blade Runner is better than Empire Strikes Back.
Empire Strikes Back is a strong movie, but we're going to say this again.
Blade Runner is better than Citizen Kane.
Blade Runner is faster and has more intensity than Citizen Kane.
No, it doesn't. It's actually quite the same. Actually,
I don't know. Citizen Kane, 3 hours, an attack on a media mogul, thinly veiled.
Thinly veiled.
Not very thinly veiled. And I met Patty Hearst twice. I met her once, and it used to be
William
called.
Randolph Hearst, never.
I took the time. I have not used the temporal time transporter to go before to the 1970s.
Admiral?
But I did go to a place called Studio 54 where I met Patty Hearst.
Really?
I met Patty Hearst at a place called Studio 54 with Mick Jagger and Angela Bowie.
Which movie has more special effects shots? Star Wars: A New Hope or Citizen Kane?
Probably equal. I'm going to say Citizen Kane was a highly
Citizen
innovative
Kane
movie.
has
It took them forever.
30% more special effects shots.
It's 30% longer.
Sorry, it's 80% better.
Citizen Kane, one of the best movies of all time. Certainly Star Wars 77, a movie that no one's seen since it was kind of unceremoniously changed into Star Wars 97.
I saw it because they put the unadulterated cut on DVD in 2007. Thank you
No, I
so much.
think it's still
Teresa.
cropped for TV.
No, Teresa bought it. No.
What aspect ratio is it in?
It was in widescreen, but it was all off of jerk-off weird cuts and like really grainy film.
I own the Lucasfilm pre-Disney releases of the DVDs.
I own the
I wonder
VHS.
if the second disc isn't an unaltered version of the movie. But if
It is. 2007 was the unaltered editions were.
1997 is the one that the Admiral has.
I will chokeslam you.
Ah,
Because I'm an expert in orchestrated combat.
someone should have chokeslammed that Indiana Jones trailer, but
We're not talking about that
in
right
Blade Runner, we have years between movies where we get one Blade Runner movie after another of the same first Blade Runner movie. We get
Explain.
one cut at
And a terrible PC
at the end of Blade Runner 1, and we can debate whether there's value in this, but
Don't
a lot of
call
people
Blade
think
Runner
there
1.
is. At the end of Blade Runner 1982, Blade
No,
Runner.
it's just called Blade Runner.
At the end of Blade Runner, as we saw it in theaters, the first cut, that we need to make that clear. The cut that aired in theaters, mostly, because I think 2 cuts aired in theaters, because when Ridley Scott is interviewed,
There's 2
he
cuts.
asked the director he asked the interviewer which version of the movie he saw.
There's the one with the sad ending, which is the real ending.
Narration, no narration,
They both
unicorn,
have
no
narration.
unicorn. Isn't
There's
that the
no
2
unicorns.
endings?
There's no unicorns.
And no narration in
And
one
there's
ending.
narration in both. There's
Okay,
the happy ending
different
where-
narration.
There's a happy ending where he carts off with
No inception date.
he carts off with Rachel.
Right.
And then there's the it's too bad she won't live.
And it's
But then again, who does?
Gaff, one of the greatest characters that we see in a
One
movie
of the
full of great
greatest
characters.
characters ever.
And I'm going to say one of the worst characters in Blade Runner 2049 because he doesn't speak street at all.
He does.
Not enough. Edward
He
James
has one
Olmos.
line. He has one line.
Yeah,
But
he
you're
does do
absolutely
one
right.
line. He doesn't speak
And
it
you're
enough.
waiting for it.
And he should have established it first rather than. I don't know.
The charmer's name was Gaff. I'd seen him around. Bryant must have upped him to the Blade Runner unit. That gibberish he talked was city speak, gutter talk, a mishmash of Japanese, Spanish, German, what have you. I
Street
didn't
at
really
all.
need to
Does.
translate.
Not
I
enough.
know the
Edward
lingo.
He
James
has one
Olmos.
line. He has one line.
Yeah,
But
he
you're
does do
absolutely
one
right.
line. He doesn't speak
And
it
you're
enough.
waiting for it.
And he should have established it first rather than. I don't know that Daniel Villeneuve has established that he's a good filmmaker. Villeneuve, whatever
No.
his name is.
You're not
Did he
Dominican.
do Planet of the Apes? What did he do before this?
He did oh my god. Did he do Looper? Look it up.
No, that's Looper is
Oh my God, Looper's Ray Johnson.
Ryan Roundhead Johnson.
By the way,
Oh.
yo, Mr. Johnson, if
The
you're listening,
movie that broke the timeline.
you're
The
trying
Last
so
Jedi.
hard. You're trying so hard.
Listen, the captain and I have our science officers working day and night on an equation to try to
can we get-
slingshot
can we
beyond
get
the sun.
something- can we
If
get
we
some-
could somehow go back in time and kill Ryan Johnson in the womb, we
I
could
don't
stop
wanna
The
kill
Last
him.
Jedi.
No, I
But
think
that's the
I
splitting
think
of the
Ryan
timeline.
Johnson is an excellent director.
And an outgrowth of J.J. Abrams.
I think he's an excellent director.
I don't
think
know if he's an excellent director.
Ryan Johnson has done more good than bad.
He's done the greatest Hummer. That's like saying Hitler also built the Autobahn.
Let me explain to you something. You're a kid, right? You're 30-something, whatever he was. Here, you make a Star Wars movie the way you want to do it.
I'll take the fault off him and say he was a terrible hire.
So, whose fault is that?
I know whose fault it is. It's the fault
Listen,
of
Last
Disney
Jedi isn't a good
and
movie?
Disney Let
me tell you something right now about. Let me tell you something right about The Last Jedi. I despise that movie. I despise that movie. If you watch that movie on mute, it's fucking amazing.
It's better.
It's not.
We know
it's
whose fault
great.
it is.
And you know what? Ryan Johnson is an excellent filmmaker. I loved Looper. You know what? I loved it. Not a little bit, a lot of it.
All right, but you know what? Maybe it was just his first act. Maybe he had one good movie with 2 Star Wars actors in it, fresh off a huge film.
Good. That's all we need. Because guess what?
He had 2 Star Wars actors in the same movie, hot off Revenge of the Sith.
All right, let's get to the fucking.
And of all the prequels, what's the best?
No, none of them are the best.
Out of the 3 prequels amongst themselves, what's the only one that's
Phantom
good?
Menace.
The only one that's good is Revenge of the Sith.
Bullshit.
The Phantom Menace is a movie that arguably should have starred Hayden Christensen.
First of all, yes. Okay, Phantom Menace has the pod race scene.
We have the
Phantom
wrong.
Menace has
We have the
dual
wrong
face.
Anakin.
You don't need an Anakin.
We make him too nice. We don't need an Anakin. That's one of the problems with the movie.
No, but you know what? I'll give him this. The Shining is one of the best movies ever made. Correct?
The Shining is one of the best movies ever made.
Yes.
And
Okay.
Blade Runner is one of the best
The
movies
failure
ever
of The
made.
Shining is Jack Torrance was a jerk off before he went insane. Correct?
He's reading Playboy at his job interview, or Playgirl.
Thank you. Hereditary, another great movie. The Family was a piece of shit before they went insane, but Star Wars had the balls to have a cute little kid and then make him insane later.
It was very
I'll give him that.
It's a ballsy move. You know
I'll
what?
give him that.
Let's talk about
Give him
Blade.
that.
Let's talk about Blade Runner for a minute.
Please.
One of the things about Blade Runner that makes
How about
it
40
great,
minutes?
The first Blade Runner that makes it great. We're going to go for 40 minutes because we're at 20. One of the things that makes it great
Goddamn right we are.
is all the miniaturization and practical props, and we see what looks like kind of has come true with.
Oh,
the
you mean
police hover car.
everything is in fucking camera?
The police hover car that we see isn't that dissimilar from the drone kind of hover cars that we already have and that we're going to start seeing more of.
Blade Runner is basically if you go to Kyoto at night.
I would also say this: we don't know what the weather is like over this city because we only have, what,
That's
36
fucking-
hours, 48 hours? It could be one
But
long
this-
storm.
This is Los Angeles from the mountains,
Now, we've got a bunch of replicas.
which is actually on the cover of Death from Above 1979's best album, The Physical World.
But we know that we know where the movie takes place. What we
Los
don't-
Angeles.
But what I'm saying is we don't know that it's always raining. We just know that it's only raining during this movie that
I would
has
say
a
this
time
movie
frame
takes
of how
over-
long?
I would say 3 days.
I would say 36 hours. I think he misses one night's sleep while he's drinking.
I don't think-
Blacks out for like 3 hours while he's drinking. It's like one long
You know what? I hate
35-hour
to say
day.
this, but I believe that you're right.
Yeah.
You've been right before, Admiral, but never.
And the closest movie to it in DNA is probably Minority Report, where John Anderton, played by Tom Cruise, quite ably in a heavily reimagined Philip K. Dick book, because no one wants to do Philip K. Dick faithful to the book. And you
by
could
the
argue,
way-
you could argue that some people have done better and some people have done worse,
I
but no
challenge-
one's done Philip K. Dick.
You need to watch Phil K. Dick's interviews.
You ain't seen Dick.
You haven't seen any Dick yet.
And you haven't
This
seen.
man is
And get him before he can.
unbelievably hilarious.
And get him before he converts to Christianity, because then he's hilarious in a different and unfunny
Speaking
way.
of hilarious, Christianity. So should we get to Blade Runner 2049 or talk about the
I
differences
believe
in
that
Blade
that
Runner?
particular belief system you referenced, Christianity, didn't last much past the Disney release of every movie ever made, again, with CGI ghosts in the year 2022.
Well,
I believe they destroyed that.
You have to market it to China now, don't you?
Now, we only have the media to work on, but apparently in 2022, very, very few straight people, and all very ashamed, right? That they're feeling pretty bad about their
Thank the Lord's below, I'm not straight.
cis superiority. We're going to be going at it like the fags we are in a little while, aren't we? But that's a different podcast.
So, Admiral, I'm a huge Blade Runner fan. I've stated this is my favorite movie of all time. Which cut do you think I think is the best?
I don't know, but I think maybe we may have said one F word too many and might have to redo this the right way.
Redo what?
Do you think we need to retake at 26 minutes, or are we on point enough?
We're on point.
Go
So,
for it.
I'll give you another.
Oh, it's only 22 minutes. We are
I'll
on
give
point.
you another
We're 4
F-
minutes
I'll
closer
give you
than
another
I thought.
F word. You know what's the
ahead.
best cut of this movie?
Go ahead.
The final cut is the best cut of this movie. by
I
far.
agree, but the thing is, it's missing what people think had value about one of the cuts we saw first,
The
which is
narration.
whether or not Deckard's a replicant, which in one of the first original two cuts Ridley Scott maybe like is toying with the idea, but he wasn't thinking this was going to be a franchise, and he
Ridley
already
Scott
knew that
has
this
stated
movie was
that
a
he is a
problem.
replicant.
Yes, but the thing is, Ridley Scott is an unreliable narrator, and I don't know if I trust what
He's
he says.
an unreliable film writer
Between
at this
Blade
point.
Runner movies, because I'm going to now acknowledge Blade Runner 2049 as a
we
thing
should.
that exists,
Yeah.
and it's good fanfic, but it's maybe
Fuck you.
it's good. It's not
Fuck.
the original writer.
Can we say fuck now?
We can say fuck,
Fuck you, Admiral.
fuck.
I'm going
it.
out of turn right now.
Go ahead.
The beautiful thing about we'll
I
get
stand
to,
by
we'll,
it. It's
we'll
good.
Get,
It's really good fanfic. I enjoy the movie.
no, it's not fan fiction. You know what?
You believe it's canonical.
There are canonical on some level. Blade Runner is the best movie ever made.
So
it's my favorite and
why
and the
why
best.
spoil it?
Why spoil what?
Why spoil it by calling the second movie canonical? Just say it's a really good take on the Blade Runner
No,
world.
it's amazing. First of all,
I'll say this: it's the best Philip K. Dick movie, only because there's no book to ruin. Let's just get that out of the
Well
way.
played, well
Small part first. Now go ahead.
all right. So I'll put it this way. It takes Blade Runner, the best movie ever made, makes a sequel. A, doesn't ruin the old movie,
Right.
and B,
I would agree to a point. Yeah.
build on it to the point that you have a movie that can only have been made with the themes of Blade Runner 2049 if Blade Runner was in existence, which it is.
Well, you know what?
So,
I'm gonna give
may I
Blade
say
Runner.
something?
Go ahead.
The one thing we're getting to about Deckard being replicant, still being teased after
Right, and-
2 movies.
Right, but then in the middle 90s, we have another, or maybe around 2000, we have another cut of the movie emerge that's not the final cut, but where Deckard's like
director's
50% more replicant,
Yes.
and they've done stuff with the narration. Now it's gone completely,
Yes,
right?
but in
and
the
we
final
end up
cut-
restoring a little bit of narration.
Yes. Okay.
So we go through a point where a whole generation,
That might be the international
generation
cut
of
you're talking
maybe
about.
3 generations of high school students go through their high school
Yes.
life with a different Blade Runner than we are used to, and the Denis Villeneuve movie is closer to the second
Villeneuve,
release. I do not think he's that close to the final cut where Ridley Scott tries to square the circle and does so well. And that is the definitive cut of the movie. I accept it. The thing is that a lot of people felt that there was value in not knowing for sure.
Guess what?
Denis Villeneuve
the-
brings that back.
The fucking disbelief is still suspended because of Blade Runner 2049, and it builds on the whole thing. What is the difference between being a replicated man and a real man?
What's the difference between being a replicated movie and a real movie?
What do you mean a real movie? These are both real movies.
These are real movies, and I
About
think
what?
that Blade Runner 2049 is a valid and good movie. I
No,
want to go
it's-
on the record
it-
right now.
it's a
If
great-
Blade Runner
it's a
1
great
didn't,
movie.
let's say that there was no Blade Runner 1 and Blade
There would
Runner
never be a
Blade Runner. But let's say that someone just did their take on Philip K. Dick was as far off as anyone else's take, and their Do Androids Dream of
Would-
Electronic Sheep movie becomes Blade Runner 2049 in itself, and there is no prequel. Let's just say that that's the only movie we had. It would still be a great movie and a cultural conversation.
Actually, to be honest with
The
you,
reason it's not is because of the first movie.
first of all, we got to this
Continued a
earlier.
cultural
We
conversation
got to this earlier.
Yes.
Blade Runner was a financial failure.
until home video starts to bail it out, and it
On
comes
the-
out of insolvency 5 or 6 years later.
And
now they're playing with house money when they start recutting it, aren't they?
But then, yes, but then they originated something.
So what do you do when you start having success in a live venue if you're
Everything
a
else
performer?
is gravy.
No, you keep giving the people what they want. If we're in a
You play
rock
the
band
hits.
and if we're playing a song and they really go crazy for the guitar solo, when we write the next song, do we make sure we have a guitar solo, see if people love that one too, right? We're gonna do it. So you give the people what they want, and Blade Runner 2049 unapologetically gives the people what they want.
What? Bullshit.
In a meta sense, it matches.
Absolutely
It matches.
not. It gives nothing what you want.
It gives you a continuation
What
of
do
the
you
conversation from 1982 that got
Yes.
cut off.
Okay.
Did you want that?
Yes, but
It gives you the life of the replicants if they didn't just die, or do they?
you're proving my point. Aaron.
Look, it continues a conversation we
didn't-
wanted to have.
It wasn't like Star Wars where it took. What was the best thing about Star Wars? Was it
Which
the adventure?
Star Wars? 77?
No, the real ones.
77?
It wasn't about the lightsabers. It was about the adventure. but they gave you lightsabers instead of adventure.
Obi-Wan versus
There is
Vader.
almost less action in 2049 than the original.
Well, 2049 is a much differently paced movie, an hour longer,
It's even,
and it's a quality
even
movie.
slower than Blade Runner.
As a person who spent 7.5 hours of their life seeing that movie in theaters, supporting it, going to see it 3 times, I walked away thinking that I had seen a worthy movie that was good. But because Dennis,
It's great.
Because Dennis, maybe it is great, but
It
because
is great.
what else was supposed
By the
to
way,
come?
this
But
is
what
the
was supposed to
preamble.
come with this movie?
That's
It was
that's
supposed
my
to
whole
be.
point.
What was this movie supposed to be?
I don't know.
What the hell does that mean?
That's
Supposed
my
to be
point.
the next movie in an ongoing Blade Runner franchise.
Oh shit!
No, that's
You're
true.
probably not wrong.
No, that's
Oh,
true.
you're
That
probably
is
right.
true.
Because the whole war of the
this,
replicants.
and that's also why we can hold off answering the question of is Deckard a replicant? Because we thought we'd have another movie to answer
doesn't
it, now
matter.
didn't we? I'll give the movie points for this. You ready?
Did you-
There's no time travel. They don't go to timeline B. They don't subvert their timeline. It's a very, very respectful movie to the first movie.
May I please can I give an anecdote, please?
Go ahead.
So the most poignant point in this entire movie is they're coaxing Deckard with his ex-wife, the love of his life, Rachel. All right. And
Deckard
it's-
has
let me
never
finish.
been married in the movie that we know of.
But he has a child.
No, that's you're thinking of Anderson in Minority Report. We don't know if Deckard had a child.
He had a kid with Rachel. 2049.
Oh, sorry.
That's why
yes,
you're supposed to watch the
okay,
movie
yes.
before.
I did
That's
watch
why
that.
this is a
I've
preamble,
watched that
not
movie
the
several
amble.
times. Okay. At the
So
end
the
of
point-
the final
please,
cut,
let me-
we move forward to 2049. Yes.
Let me finish. It was a commentary in my heart of hearts about these movies being made. So he loves Rachel. He hasn't seen Rachel in the movies. She died in childhood. So then Wallace, the so-called antagonist, in his heart of hearts, doing the right thing.
I had to remember who that was, but Jared
Jared
Leto,
Leto
strong
did great in that
performance
fucking
in a
movie.
very
He
sparse
does
role. He's
great.
not in a whole lot of
He
movies.
does great in every movie. Spoiler alert.
He's great in that. Well, no, not the
Morbius?
Batman movies. He's a terrible Joker.
He was
I'm
an
sorry.
excellent Joker in the
No, I'm
Justice
sorry.
League cut.
It's not his fault. He's trying. It's the dialogue. He's gonna get everybody drowned. It's not good.
Can
It's
you let
Zack
me finish
Snyder.
my point? Can you let me finish
Go
my
for it.
point? So Rachel pops out in the exact same dress, the exact same hairdo, and walks out and see. This is the only time Harrison Ford's acted in years. And he's in his chair and he is falling back in love with the woman that he loved decades ago. And he gets up and you see the tears in this. You see the tears in this replicant's eyes.
You do see it
Don't
well
you-
rendered.
Don't
It's
you?
really well rendered.
Don't you love me? And he falls in love with the woman that he's loved 30 years ago. He had to watch her die in
But he
childbirth.
swoons for a moment.
Yeah, and then he almost touches her face,
And
and
seems
he
to have a
says,
realization.
and he realizes one thing, and he looks. He doesn't even look at Wallace. He says this. Her eyes were
occurred to
green,
you that's why you
and
were
her
summoned in the
brains
first
get
place.
blown out.
By Wallace.
No,
That's-
I think it was by the chick.
Oh yeah, Wallace is tough woman enforcer. She's a pretty cool
Pretty
replicant,
cool.
though. I like
She
that
is
character.
Probably almost cooler than Roy, but no one's cooler
She
than Roy.
managed to be a
My
really
whole
good
point-
movie bad guy without being
Do not be afraid.
too
She
much
was an
of a
amazing
girl boss.
movie bad guy.
She was a pretty good movie bad guy. I don't
The girl
remember the
boss
fate of that
was
character.
Robin Wright, Penn.
And she
Robin
also
Wright, yeah.
gets killed too, subverting some of our
We
expectations.
are ruining this review. I
Well,
think
no,
reviewing
we're
it
going to
now.
review the movie, but these are our...
For you.
thoughts because we have not
Now,
rewatched
okay,
the movies.
let's-
We are doing this completely meta,
So-
and we've watched trailers of only Blade Runner 1. at
So
this point.
let's cement this right now. Admiral, what are your thoughts on Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049?
I like both movies a lot.
Okay.
I think that Blade Runner: The Final Cut is a tour de force in filmmaking, storytelling, and really just teasing out the idea just enough. We get just enough about the android. We get just enough about Deckard. We get just enough about really everything. It couldn't have been done better. and one of the most iconic scenes of all time with Roy Batty doing fatal acrobatics, jumping from building
Rooftop
to
to
building.
rooftop, yeah.
And then, I mean, what the hell happened? Did he grab that pigeon just out of the air? I mean, it's
There's
an
a lot of talk about
incredible
that.
moment.
There's a documentary called Dangerous Days, which was the original shooting title for this script.
It's taken us to 33 minutes to get to the real meat and importance of our thoughts on the Blade Runner.
No, because we're gonna watch both. Of these
Dyad.
movies. We're gonna watch both.
Well,
of these
this
movies.
is our preview.
So
We have not reviewed the movies yet because we have not rewatched them.
Yes, I've rewatched 2049. I feel very strongly. So Admiral, once again, what are your thoughts on Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049?
Blade Runner is the beginning of an incredible conversation that has been expanded and stretched like a rubber band by Ridley Scott. Whether or not you believe that rubber band snaps perfectly back into shape for 2049, or is maybe just a little bit too stretched out and not the same shiny piece of latex that once held the morning's great smelling newspaper, and remember those anachronistic things, newspapers, which aren't in Blade Runner, so they got that right, although I do think we see them as garbage. You leave us a comment if you remember if there's
I've
physical newspapers in Blade Runner.
I would.
But
There
Ridley
are
Scott has
the beginning of the movie.
Ridley Scott has muddied the waters considerably. In 1982, in an interview, he asked the reporter if the reporter is which cut of the movie his interviewer has seen. Right, he's being interviewed in the publicity for the movie the year it came
Which
out.
means obviously there are at least two
And
cuts
Ridley
at this
Scott
time.
says to him, "Which cut did you see? The one with the giraffe or not, or the unicorn or not?"
Yeah.
And he says, "I didn't see the one with the unicorn." So we established that there were two cuts of the movie. And he says, "What did you think?" And he goes, repeated back to him by the reporter, is summing up his own thoughts. The interviewer says to Ridley Scott, "The implication of the unicorn would be that Deckard is a replicant, I guess." And Ridley Scott's answer is, "Yeah, sure." And I don't know if we should put anything he says after that 1982 interview in too much perspective, because just like a good musician, he can be like Jimmy Page, and he goes out there and he's playing Stairway to Heaven, and it's just getting longer.
Yeah.
It's just getting longer every time, and there's parts in
I like
that
the way you
song
put that,
there's parts in Stairway to Heaven that weren't there. And look at a terrible movie like Prometheus to see how far Ridley Scott fell. And
So
the
we have to
genius
do
of Black Hawk
Prometheus,
Down.
and we have to do Solo. Okay.
And we have to do the genius of Black Hawk Down. The only time he goes real life with a real life time frame and only one fake character.
No, Matchstick Man as well.
Okay, I did not know that. But Ridley Scott, certainly he's had his ups and his downs, more ups than downs, more highs than lows.
Yeah.
He fell into a bad formula. I think that some of his better movies did worse than his good movies, like The Last Duel deserved a better fate. It was, in fact, a really good movie.
What's the medieval movie?
Leaving to go where?
Kingdom of Heaven with Orlando Bloom,
Whoa.
our friend from Lord of the Rings, a great trilogy.
The last.
And The Hobbit, a good trilogy.
Oh, Admiral.
Not great. Good.
So,
good though.
your
It's
thoughts
good.
of 2049?
A lot of people really love that Hobbit trilogy, though, so I won't attack.
No.
Peter Jackson, certainly our preferred Tolkien reinterpreter. You can never
Your
do
thoughts on
Tolkien.
2049?
2049 is my thoughts on Philip K. Dick. Sometimes a book should only be a book. Maybe the first movie is its own thing called Blade Runner, and it's a self-contained genius statement. And if you want to put an addendum on it, if you have to put wings on a tiger, if you have to put horns on a beautiful horse, then turn it into the unicorn from the movie Legend, because that's what you get in 2049. It's a really good, enjoyable movie with great moments, but it assumes a lot of stuff. I don't know if we needed Rachel to have that child. Just tell me, how does that child figure into or inform or enjoy our journey in that movie? Tell me.
Would you like me to give you my take on 2049? And
I want you to first tell me everything good that comes to mind about Deckard and Rachel's daughter.
having a child?
No, that character and her presence in the movie.
In which movie?
In 2049, because she's not in the first movie.
Who? The child?
There is no child. The child is not in this movie at all. That's
the child
Wakanda.
in 2049.
Wakanda
Wait,
is in 2022, I believe.
Wait, do you want to do this now? Or you want to ruin the Blade Runner conversation? Because
We're going to have the whole Blade Runner conversation, and then we're going to have it again after watching the movies.
Okay, you know what?
And it's going to be a while off in the future, and there'll be more
spoiler-
content between that. So no one's going to have this fresh in their mind.
The job of
We're going to be like Zack Snyder. We're going to count on people forgetting.
Rachel and Deckard's child her job in 2049.
Where
is
does she
making
live?
She lives in a bubble since she was 8 years old.
So she doesn't do a lot of climbing, shooting, running, jumping.
But
interesting.
her imagination is so deep that she is charged by the Wallace Corporation.
Wallace Corporation is now the primary producer of replicants,
from Tyrell.
replacing the Wigan Fujisami Corporation.
Very well put, because there is a connection.
Ridley Scott has implied this is the same world as the Aliens movie.
And we're waiting for it to connect. Just
We
like
are.
Portal
We
and
really are.
Half-Life.
He almost connects it in Prometheus, but then
He connects it!
He almost connects it, but I think we kill Charlize Theron
All right.
before we know if she's a replicant or not.
First of all, let me finish.
Go ahead.
Alright, so she creates memories for replicants.
Memories.
Yes.
You're talking about memories.
So what does she do? Whose memories does she put? She puts
Her own,
memories
right?
into K.
That's why every replicant thinks
Join the
they're
implication.
Deckard's child through their
You know
joined ghost dream. Which, I have a question
It's
for
not
you.
you're not letting me finish.
Isn't it? Okay, go ahead.
You asked me why.
Square the circle.
Okay. Squared circle, by the way, professional wrestling, the sport of kings. So my whole point is, so she is allegedly the first ever replicant, half replicant, half human. If you believe that Deckard's a replicant. Now, if Deckard is a replicant,
Deckard isn't. Well,
it kind of ruins the whole theme of the original Blade Runner.
well, what Dennis Villeneuve?
You're not letting me finish.
I thought that you completely thought.
So, in 2049, the main character is a Blade Runner who is a replicant and knows he's a replicant.
Very clever, isn't it? It's very
No,
cleverly
it's
done.
not clever. It's fucking genius. And I'll get into it.
Is it
fucking
genius
right.
or is it clever?
It is.
Like a sign language chip.
Oh my! You know what, Admiral? We're doing the review now. All right, because
We're
I want to
going
say
down.
this right now.
Please like and follow our podcast after you say your summation, because we're going to end this one and start the review.
All right. You know what?
Go
Okay.
for it.
I'm sorry, because I'm not gonna say this now. Then you know what I'm gonna say it. The beauty of Blade Runner 2049
I guess
is
you're through,
he's
huh?
established K.
Okay, yes, that's the character's name. I
He
forgot.
is established as a replicant,
Can I just say
and then no.
Sorry.
And then he thinks through his own deduction that he is half replicant, half human, and he thinks. And he says, I've never killed anything that was born before. I've never killed anything with a soul. And he is told, good thing you don't have one. But for a while, he has a soul. He's a replicated man. And for a moment, through his deduction, he thinks that he might be a real boy. Such as the Pinocchio, such as his date, his girlfriend Joy says. And then, through the fact that he thinks that he's human, he begins acting like a human, and having the only time he ever has an emotional response is when he finds out that he's human. But he's not human. He's only tricks himself into thinking he's human. The deepness of this premise is beyond me. It is the most beautiful and fucking. It is the only way you can go with Blade Runner, and it wins on every fucking level.
I'm going to do my imitation.
Every level.
I'm going to be like the guy.
This movie is fucking great.
I'm going to be like, is it Mike from Red Letter Media? Is he the heavy guy? The one?
Yeah.
All right, ready? Why do we need this movie?
We don't need the movie. We didn't need this movie.
Could that be the one-line review of this movie?
We don't need.
Let me
Blade
ask
Runner
you
2049.
a question. The reason why I say that is there are beat-for-beat things from my life lived from a person who saw the movie when it first came out
Okay.
to a person
Blade Runner.
who then gets to sit in the theater and see the sequel, right?
Okay.
And I lived through things like the music of Sieg Sputnik, a great fucking punk band with a song called Love Rocket F-111, Shoot It Up, that has samples from the movie that was played at every punk club through the 80s and 90s every
I feel
night.
the same way about the industrial band, Fear Factory.
Fear Factory is a great band.
Yeah, they were.
They were. They had a few great songs, and one of the few times that someone did a redo of an original song as good as
Cars.
that song, Cars by Gary Newman, and that makes them a good analogy for this Blade Runner
Also
conversation.
did a very good U2 cover, by the way.
So that's it, our preview thought of the 2 Blade Runner world.
I'm sorry it ended with me yelling, but the next one will begin with me yelling.
There we go.